Hello, folks, and welcome out to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I'm 16-Bit, and I got a good show for you this week. We'll be talking about problems at GameStop, as well as new information out of Tokyo Game Show, and a possible loot box ban in the UK, plus more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And our first topic is, well, it seems that Nintendo is back at their old shit. Apparently, this past week, they received a court order from the UK courts to have ISPs block several sites that provide software and hardware modifications for the Switch and the 3DS. The sites that are most affected are Team Executor, SX Executor, SX Flashcard, and Stargate 3DS. Now, they're all under the same umbrella. They're all run by the same people. But because they're different URLs, they're treated basically as completely different things. And honestly, is anyone really surprised at this point? I mean, seriously, Nintendo's been doing this shit for years. I mean, this past year, they convinced them and several other companies convinced the Japanese government to outright ban console modifications. Then you had, I like to say maybe 2016 to 2017, where there was this period that I like to call the emulation panic, where basically Nintendo just kept sending out cease and desist letters, not only to emulation sites, but even fan games. Of course, everyone knows about the infamous AM2R situation. I'm glad I downloaded that before that went offline. Hell, I can remember like 10 years ago, Nintendo was constantly wrestling with the homebrew channel on the Wii. It seemed like every few months you would hear about the two. Nintendo would put out an update that completely wiped homebrew channel from your Wii, and then a few months later, homebrew channel had an update that completely circumvented that. And then Nintendo would put out an update that completely wiped that. And it would just went on and on and on until eventually Homebrew Channel won, simply because the Nintendo released the Wii U and they stopped giving a crap about the Wii. In fact, you could basically do that right now. And the Wii's online is basically completely shut down. There's no way they can update it. So right now is kind of like the perfect time to get Homebrew Channel on your Wii and just sort of use that. The funny thing about this is that it actually doesn't take into consideration that some people will use VPNs. Like seriously, all you could do is if you're a UK resident, you get a VPN, you sign into a US server, and then bam, there you go. You don't have to worry about ISPs blocking these sites anymore because now they think that you're in the US. It's like, I seriously don't think Nintendo thinks sometimes. I think they just sort of go ahead and look, I get it. It's their intellectual property. Nintendo has the right to send out cease and desist letters and to get court orders and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I understand that. But in the end, emulation will win. You could try as much as you want. You could fight it. But eventually it's going to win. And even then, didn't like the European Union put out a study? Or I don't even think it was the European Union. I think it was some other organization within Europe. And it showed that apparently piracy didn't really affect video game sales. So it's like, what's even the point? like, what's the point of even trying to go after this stuff so hard? Okay, I understand if you're physically stealing a video game and selling it on the black market, that's one thing. But going after emulation sites for selling, like, what, 35, 40-year-old video games? It's a little ridiculous. It's excessive. All right, next topic. Okay, so it seems that GameStop isn't exactly in a good financial position right now. Apparently, they released an earnings call recently that announced that they will be shutting down over 180 to 200 stores. Now, keep in mind, that's 200 of 5,700 worldwide. So it's not like they're going to be shuttering down anytime soon. But honestly, this might be a portent of things to come because they've also said that they're going to be shutting down more stores afterwards. So it's all going to be going downhill from here. I'll tell you why this is happening. Number one, fierce competition. They've got to deal with brick and mortar stores like Walmart and Target and a whole bunch of other places. But also, they also have to deal with digital right now. Amazon is huge for gaming right now. It's one of the largest online marketplaces for video games. So they have to compete with that. They also have to compete with other ones, with the digital stores of other brick and mortar stores. Like I said, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, all of them are competing with GameStop and they're not being able to cut it. Another reason is, well, their poor relationship with the public. I guarantee you go up to any person or any gamer and you ask them about what they think of GameStop, I guarantee you they've had a bad experience with them. Everyone has. Hell, even I've had a bad experience with GameStop. Actually, several. If you want to see what I'm talking about, okay, open up a new tab, go to YouTube, and type in GameStop rant. And you will find thousands and thousands of videos dating back to at least 2006 and 2007 talking about all the problems with GameStop. People have had problems with this company for years. And it's not just consumers. It's also even former employees have talked about how bad this company is. One of the best rants I've ever seen about GameStop was from Silent Rob. It's an old rant that he did back, I want to say 2008, 2009. I'm not exactly sure when he did it, but I remember watching it and it was eye-opening because he talked about things that was just completely messed up. We're talking about employees stealing games, employees basically like lying to consumers. Razorfist did a fantastic rant as well. He talked about how he was basically forced by the company to lie to consumers asking for Wiis because they were told that, well, if we tell people now, we won't make as much money as we will during Christmas. Okay, this is the kind of shady, underhanded shit that company is infamous for. Okay, and it's that reason why they have a poor public relations right now. That's why. It's no other reason other than that. It's all their fault. So honestly, I don't want people to lose their jobs. Okay, I don't want people to lose their jobs, but the company is pretty shit. Okay, and it's either they fix this crap, they fix their problems, or they go under. And I guarantee you, if that happens, if GameStop goes under, people will not be saddened. They will be celebrating. Anyway, next topic. So this next topic I thought was too funny to not cover. Apparently, on Steam, a new dating simulator is coming out on September 24th. And it's called, and I kid you not, I Love You, Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating simulator. That's right, KFC is coming out with their own dating simulator because why not? It's not as if Steam is already full of dating simulators already. Personally, I'm not a fan of any visual novel or dating simulator. I find them mostly boring, but I just thought this one was just too funny to not cover. It says here that of its features, it lists 9 lovable characters, multiple hours of playthrough, dateable Colonel Sanders, a secret ending, secret recipes, double cooking battles, earn a degree from a fictional culinary school, 11 herbs and spices, cute miniature food, officially created by KFC. No, really. So at least they're having fun with it. At least they're like this whole thing is meant to be a joke. That's fine. At least as long as they're having fun, that's perfectly fine. It kind of reminds me of sort of the other games that have been made by several other fast food companies. Like I remember, of course, the first one that comes to my mind is McKids, which wasn't that bad. It was all right. Then there was McDonald's in Treasureland, which is actually pretty good. And the funny thing about it is that it's actually made by Treasure. Yeah, the same people who made Gunstar Heroes, Guardian Heroes, Sin and Punishment. They made a McDonald's game, and it's actually pretty good. And because of that, it's become quite sought after amongst fans. And then there was, of course, the Burger King games. Oh, God, I remember when those came out. I never got any of them, but I knew people who had them, and I remember playing them several times. And they were pretty fun. I think there was only two, if I remember correctly. There was Pocket Bike Racer and Sneak King. Sneak King was like the weirdest one because the whole point was you had to sneak behind people and then sort of surprise them with Burger King food. It was completely strange, but kind of fun in a way. So, yeah. So KFC is coming out with its own dating simulator. That's on September 24th. It already has a Steam page. Oh boy. Now that I think about it, KFC usually has a history of doing pretty crazy things in the past. Like case in point, back in the 60s, KFC was a huge supporter of 60s drive-in exploitation movies. No joke. They would offer free food to the cast and crew in exchange for product placement. And in several of these movies, okay, you'll have characters sitting there eating KFC, and then out of nowhere, the Colonel himself just pops up and will say something like, "Isn't that the tastiest chicken you've ever had?" Like, yeah, he would just show up in like these 60 exploitation biker movies and horror movies just for product placement. Hey, at least they must be doing something right. If they've lasted this long doing absolute crazy things, then they got to be doing something right. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And for this next segment, I want to talk about Tokyo Game Show. That's right, this past week was, of course, Japan's largest gaming event, and a lot of interesting stuff was shown, mostly brand new games, as well as new information on games we've already known about. And so I'm going to highlight a few of them here. The first one being the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square put out a trailer for it, and it looks really good. The graphics look amazing. Seriously, like it's some of the most gorgeous graphics I've seen recently. And what's also interesting is that if you compare it to Advent Children, it looks on par. Seriously, go watch a trailer for Advent Children and then watch the new trailer. It looks almost exact, and it's kind of mind-blowing that there is a game that looks almost exactly like Advent Children. What was also interesting thing about the trailer was that it was focused entirely on Midgar, and that's because part 1 is going to entirely take place within Midgar. And so you got a little taste of, part of details and things within that section. For example, the squats minigame is brought back in there, as well as several other minigames as well. They also showed off several battle scenes with the Turks. That's right, the Turks were in this one. And it also showed off the summons within this, Shiva and Ifrit. What I also thought was funny was that it showed Cloud when he's turned into Frog. That was that was a neat little touch they added to the trailer. What was also interesting was that they showed off a bit of the Don Corneo segment of Final Fantasy VII. And I'm glad that they're not going to skip over it. I'm glad that they're going to keep it in there, and I hope that they also do the same with the Honeybee Inn. Because the Honeybee Inn was one of the biggest what the fuck moments in gaming. See, for me, that was it. Like, that was one of the biggest what the fuck is going on moments. I remember the first time I played 7, I got onto that, and I didn't expect it because I had no idea that it was even in the game. So I get to there, and the segment where he basically, like, he goes into, like, the bathhouse, and then there's all, like, the muscle men who come out, and it was just like, what the hell is going on? Did my mom buy me an AO game? Like, that was some of the first thoughts that were going in my head when that segment went on. But anyway, the game looks really good, and despite that, though, I'm still not exactly interested in it. And that's simply because my opinion of 7 has kind of gone down over the past few years. When I first played 7, it was one of my favorite games of all time. And then I started playing the other games, and I'm like, it's all right. It's not that great. It's not that bad. It's just sort of in the middle. Even though I say Final Fantasy IX is my favorite game in the series and game of all time, I still hold that 6 is the best game in the entire series. So anyway, next up, of course, is Death Stranding. And the thing is, Sony announced that they were going to be showing off 49 minutes worth of footage, and they also uploaded a 7-minute briefing video that was supposed to explain the basic plot. And even then, I still barely have an idea as to what this game is even about. Seriously, the briefing video, it gave you a slight hint that basically, here's what happened, okay? Apparently, a catastrophe rocked the entire United States. The government is in shambles. Most cities have become city-states. And you, as Norman Reedus, are supposed to go around the country reconnecting the cities to the internet, while at the same time trying to save a woman and stop a roving band of terrorists. Or at least that's what I think happened. Even then, it still doesn't explain the whole baby thing. It doesn't even explain the whole, like, the very first trailer with the whole, like, sea life in the middle of the beach and all that kind of stuff. None of that was explained. And honestly, I just have no faith in this game. I really don't. It doesn't look interesting to me. I feel like it's complete. It doesn't really have a vision as to what it wants to be. Because I look at the gameplay footage, okay? And it shows elements of stealth and third-person shooting, as well as even some sort of MMO elements, where basically other players will be playing the game and you can see their stuff, and I don't know. It feels like it has like 10 different ideas and it doesn't know which one it wants to be. And I feel a lot of it is because no one is putting a leash on Kojima. He's surrounded by people who constantly just praise everything he does. Sony is just throwing millions of dollars at him and just not giving a crap about what it is he's making, just that he makes a game for them. And because of that, he's focusing on 10 different things that he wants to do, and he can't focus them on the exact same time. That's what it is. This game, to me, looks like it's going to be a colossal mess. And I feel it's going to bomb. Just because no one has any idea what the hell is going on. It doesn't look like this game has a single vision as to what it wants to be. And because of that, it's going to turn off a lot of people, and I have a feeling that this game is going to be a huge bomb. Like, really do. I mean, sure, the Kojima fans, they're going to buy this game regardless just because it has his name on it. But your average person, they're going to look at this and going to see that this is a colossal mess. And I feel that that's going to lead to it having poor sales. I mean, I could be wrong. Most likely I'm going to probably be wrong on that. But I just get that feeling, I can't shake it, that this game is going to be a huge failure. So anyway, next up, of course, is Project Resistance. Now, I've talked about this show on the past, and I speculated that it was Resident Evil 8. Some people were speculating that it was either Resident Evil Outbreak 3 or Resident Evil 3 Remake, but it turns out it was neither any of those. Instead, it's a completely brand new game that's being described as a asymmetrical multiplayer game. Basically, 4 players square off against hordes of zombies and monsters throughout the series, and while at the same time, a 5th player controls all the monsters. Think of it as Left 4 Dead, except instead of the AI director, it's basically a 5th player controlling all the zombies. Or kind of like Friday the 13th, the game. It's very similar to that kind of concept. It sounds very interesting. Sounds like a really neat sort of concept. I like the idea of a 5th player controlling all the zombies and basically like setting them all up. That sounds really cool. The monsters seem mostly to be from Resident Evil 1 and 2 because you got stuff like the Lickers and, of course, Mr. X. So, seems very interesting and definitely looks like a game I'd want to check out. And last but not least, there was the announcement of a new Guilty Gear coming out next year. Hell yeah, I need that shit, and I need that right now. Guilty Gear, freaking awesome. Xrd was great. One of my favorite fighters of this generation. And to see that they're actually going to continue with what they did with Xrd, where they're using Unreal Engine, I'm like, dude, sign me up. So far, the trailer is very short. It's only a minute, showing Soul Bad Guy and Kai Kisuke fighting, though with heavy metal music playing in the background. Though, what's interesting is it ended with a 3rd character confirmation, who is May, my character from Xrd. So I'm super excited that she's back. She has a brand new redesign that looks really good. And just overall, I'm super excited for this. Dude, this is going to be absolutely awesome. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what future characters will be confirmed. Though I'm also hoping that they'll bring Bridget into this one as well. Because let's be honest here, he's a good fighter, and also everyone is gay for Bridget. So anyway, folks, I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and we're back. And for this next segment, I want to talk about the whole loot box debate because it seems as there's been an update to it. Apparently, recently the UK, hold on a second, UK Digital Culture, Media and Sport Committee, it's quite a mouthful, did an inquiry into loot boxes. And this included many people within the industry, developers, PR people, as well as academics, to be asked questions about it and sort of understand the whole loot box thing. And apparently what they got out of it was that they're now recommending that the UK government ban the sale of loot boxes within the country. Now, the funny thing about this was that the reason why they cited this was they felt that they couldn't trust some of the representatives from the industry. Of course, the representatives they're talking about are mostly from EA and Epic. So what does that tell you about those companies that not even UK politicians could trust a lot of these representatives? I mean, seriously, think about that for a second. You're talking about politicians, people who literally smile at you while they basically try to screw you over and raise your taxes. And they can't even trust video game PR people. Seriously, they can't even trust EA representatives. I mean, wow, EA, that's a real that's a real feat. That's something I've never heard a video game company ever actually doing. Being more untrustworthy than a politician. But anyway, it wouldn't surprise me if the UK government does actually ban loot boxes because they've been on a banning spree for some time. Didn't they? I think they banned like porn or something like that. I know that there was something about that you need a license to look at porn. They've also been using like a Deadly Weapons Act to get some things banned, like of course like knives and such. Like even I'm not talking about like hunting knives. We're talking like dinnerware knives. But of course this is all under UK law, so they can legally do all this within that country. As for, of course, my home country, the United States, it's a little bit different. Right now, there have been several representatives who have called for bills to ban loot boxes. And in the U.S. Senate, there's a bipartisan supported bill that would ban loot boxes. It was created by Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri. Now, here's the thing with that. Because I've seen a lot of people, because this was back in late May, this news came out. I've seen a lot of people who think that, once that's passed, that's it. But the thing is, I don't really think so. Here's what I think will happen. If something like this is passed, okay, let's say hypothetically speaking, okay, it passes the Senate, it passes the House, passes the Senate again, and then goes to the president and he signs it, okay? Even with all of that, I still think that something like that will not go through, will not last very long. The reason being, because of the ESA. Many people forget that the ESA is the lobbying arm of the video game industry. They don't represent gamers. I know a lot of us like to think that they do, but in reality they don't. They represent all the major players within the video game industry. Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, Sega, Bethesda, EA, Activision, Blizzard, and plus more. All of them are represented by the ESA. And so if something like this passes, I can see the ESA filing a lawsuit and taking it up to the Supreme Court. And if that happens, then most likely the Supreme Court will vote in favor of the ESA. Why? Well, because they already voted that video games are protected by the First Amendment. You see, I think a lot of people who I've spoken to about this, they keep forgetting that back in 2011, the Supreme Court ruled that video games were protected under the First Amendment. It was all over because of a 2005 law that was passed by California, in which I think it was illegal to sell violent games to minors. Okay, it went through the entire court system, and in 2011 it went up to the Supreme Court, and in a 7-2 decision, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the video game industry, citing that video games are protected under the First Amendment. So let's say, for example, if this does pass and the ESA takes it all the way up to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court will have to rule with the previous precedent. They'll have to vote that, yes, video games are protected under the First Amendment, and loot boxes will stay. Now, when it comes to loot boxes in general, I'm on the fence of it. Personally, I don't like that kind of crap. I refuse to support any game that uses it. However, I think government intervention is a little too far. Because, let's be honest here, the government for the past 30 years has tried to legislate video games, okay? I trust the US government with this about as well as I trust EA, okay? I don't trust them to actually fix this issue. I basically expect them to make this into basically a way for them to start regulating video games in general. You know they're gonna do that shit. You know it. Personally, I think that something like this could be easily fixed by just voting with your wallets. And I understand gambling addiction is a huge issue, but you can't legislate you can't legislate bad habits, okay? That's been tried before. They tried it with the Volstead Act in 1919. Many of you know it as prohibition, and that didn't do much. Instead, it's been said that more Americans drank throughout prohibition than at any time in American history. Hell, look at the drug war right now, okay? The entire drug war has been an absolute failure. It hasn't stopped addiction. It's made people more addicted to drugs. So you're not going to be able to just legislate gambling addictions away. You can't do it. Especially also since you have many states that have outright legalized online gambling. And then you have the debate as to whether or not loot boxes can be considered gambling. Because technically, while you are paying money to get prizes, those prizes technically aren't really money. And most gambling laws require that the prize has a monetary value. So it's a little bit more complex. I think a lot of people try to oversimplify this as to, you just ban this and that's it, all your problems go away. But it doesn't work like that. This is a much more complex issue than just the government passes a law, bans it, and that's it. Overall, I feel that there's a lot of legal hurdles that are in the way before you can even try to ban something like this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pro loot box. I've said that before. I can't stand games that use that. I try not to play any games that use that. And if I do, I refuse to use them. I refuse to purchase any. I think of all the games I've played with loot boxes, I think it's been Team Fortress 2, but that was because I was playing it before it had loot boxes. And then there was Overwatch, but that was because it was a free weekend. I think League of Legends has them as well, but I never purchased any. All I'm saying is that it's a little bit more of a complex issue. I know I've said that quite a lot, but it really is. If the UK feels that they want to ban loot boxes, fine. They have every right to do so. Same thing with Belgium. Same thing with a lot of these other countries in Europe. But in the US, it's a little bit more complicated than just passing a law and saying that's it. So, all right, folks, I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this. All right, folks, and that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. Regarding the last segment, if you have an opposing opinion, I would definitely love to hear it. No joke, I'm actually serious about this. I would like to hear an opposing opinion because anytime I've tried to speak to people about this, I've encountered nothing but vitriol. The last time I did speak to someone about this, they outright accused me of being a lobbyist. So definitely, if you have an opposing opinion, leave it down below. You could follow me on YouTube and BitChute. Links are in the description, as well as my link to my Twitter and Gab accounts. So anyway, guys, I'll see you all next week. And remember that video games will never die.